a warm welcome to each one of you here on Tuesday night for the Tuesday tune-in. And always a treat to practice together, always. And I won't make too many announcements other than to say that please check in with the website about various and sundry changes that are happening to the schedule during the month of April, while both Stephen and I are going to be doing some travel. And yeah, the regular Tuesday night program is about 30 minutes or so guided meditation, 30 minutes or so, if I don't ramble on, of practice this Dharma discussion, Dharma talk, and then plenty of time for questions, reflections, comments on those themes or whatever's up for you, frankly. So with that, I think what I was hoping to do this evening for the meditation is to yeah, we're going to do a practice of mindfulness of breathing with some pointers toward how to be present for the whole length of the breath. So with that, you can go ahead and begin to establish your meditation posture. It's often helpful to begin with just a little bit of movement. Allowing the body to release a bit of tension and to find a balanced posture. Feeling the weight of the body on your supports. And releasing the belly. Sensing the natural stability of the body. And from that steady pace, excuse me, from that steady base, allowing the bones of the spine to line up little by little. Feeling that alignment all the way up through the neck. So the bones can carry the weight of the body. And perhaps the muscles of the shoulders and the chest can become softer and wider. And perhaps the sensations of breathing have started to come to the forefront. And maybe you feel them in the nose or in the throat. In the chest or in the diaphragm. Or even the echoes of the breath in the lower abdomen. Any place you feel the sensations of breathing is fine. And just gently place your attention on the sensations of the breath, breathing the body. And if you have difficulty observing the breath or staying with it, you might try this inner sigh. This is something that I do sometimes when I'm on retreat. With each in-breath and with each out-breath, you just imagine in your mind a little bit of a sigh. Ah. And all the while, thoughts are coming and going. And there's no need to attend to them at all. Just resting the attention on the sensations of the breath. And after some time of attending to the sensations of the breath, you might check in to see if there are any pauses between the parts of the breath. It might be very short or a bit longer. And there's no need to change them at all. But just notice, be present for the pauses. And as the mind becomes a little more steady, you can let go of the sigh if you were trying that technique. And stay curious about the pauses between the breath. And when you are present for the pauses, again begin to notice the start of each part of the breath. Those moments where impermanence is very clear, shift from stillness into movement. And perhaps the mind is willing to ride along from the start of each part of the breath all the way along until you arrive at the next pause. Beautiful. That brings us to the Dhamma talk. And I'm going to bring up the chant of the homage to the Triple Gem. And folks in the room here, you're welcome to see it up on the screen, or there's some chant sheets up there on the top of the temple there where Avalokiteshvara sits, right behind you. All right. So please go ahead and keep your mics muted for those folks online. And you're also welcome to just let it wash over you if you prefer. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ namasami. Back in February, I had the blessing of going on a pilgrimage to India and Nepal. Had this wonderful opportunity to go and visit some of the sacred sites of Buddhism. And perhaps the question comes up, why go? Why go? If the Dhamma is everywhere, if the truths of our lives are right here in front of us, why go? Human beings have been doing this, traveling, walking, riding, flying, for a long time. But that's not the reason to go, is it? So I've been thinking a bit about the meaning of pilgrimage and the meaning of sacred places. What is really a sacred place or a holy place? And one way to think about it is that we go to a place and we receive the story about that place. Right? We step into that story in a way by being there. even a place like this, the living room, is the meditation hall. Maybe you have a shrine in your home. So we step into the story of a place. But the story is one that we have created, right? That people have created about these places. It's not that a place doesn't have some kind of special feeling. It can indeed have a special feeling. You know, when we were at Bodh Gaya, so I was with a group of 26 other folks. And at Bodh Gaya, there's this kind of wave-like energy that you can feel in the place. This kind of like flowing up and down kind of wave. And several people mentioned it, actually. I thought it was very interesting that people mentioned having that feeling there. Or when we were at the Bamboo Grove. So the Bamboo Grove, it's just a park. It actually has like a kid's playground on one end of it now. And but it's a park where the Buddha, the historical person, and many of his disciples and many people since have come and taught the Dhamma. And there's also now, there's a stupa there that was put there by the Dalai Lama, a stupa about reconciliation. And you sit down in that place and it's full of loving kindness. It's just this huge, very, very bright, very joyful energy of kindness. Or we went to the Mahakala cave. So the Mahakala cave is a place where the Buddha practiced his austerities. It's where he did the really, really grueling kind of practices where before he was awakened, he would hold his breath until he said it felt like his head was splitting. Or he would say, crush his mind with his mind until sweat poured out of his armpits. Or he gave up eating. He fasted in this very extreme fasting for a while. And you can feel that kind of like sharp. There's a bright energy in the cave, but it's also kind of sharp. It's tiny. It's a cave. It's like smaller than the inside of your SUV. This cave where the Buddha sat, practiced his austerities. So places can have a feeling, there's no doubt about that. But the places, we make the meaning of it. We make the meaning of it by what we do there, by how we relate to each other there, by the stories that we tell about the place. So one of the places that we visited on the pilgrimage was Kushinagar. So there are said to be 4 places in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, so in the sutta which tells the story of the Buddha's last few months of his life and what happened immediately following his death. And there is, the Buddha is recorded as saying that people could go for inspiration to these 4 places, to the place where he was born, to the place where so that was in Lumbini right now, in Nepal, the place where he was born, so we understand. There's Bodh Gaya, where he woke up. There's Sarnath, where he gave his first discourse, his first teaching. And then Kushinagar, where he died, where he passed into parinibbana. And the Buddha doesn't really say much about why we should go to those places except for the sense of inspiration and that it's a wholesome thing to do. But for me, one of the reasons that I can imagine is that we see that he was a person, that he lived in these places on this earth. We're not talking about some deity in some special plane of existence. We were talking about muddy roads and piles of bricks and cattle and people lighting incense. So we went to Kushinagar. We went to the Mahaparinibbana temple. So there's a stupa that's there, a sort of memorial mound, if you will, that is there in the place where he is said to have died. And then in front of that, they built this temple. And so when we got there, we were doing this kind of offering. And I want to read to you a little bit about why the traditional way of doing the offering is related to this story from the Digha Nikaya, so from the long discourse where this story is told. So the Buddha arrives in what's called the Mallas, the country of the Mallas. So the Mallas were the clan that was in that area of Kushinagar. And the Buddha's there, and he's with his attendant Ananda. And they're kind of doing, he's been on kind of sort of walkabout meeting with various groups of people and doing his last Dharma talks. And then they arrive in Mala, and he is speaking to this clansman named Pukasa. And Pukasa says he wants to give these fine sets of robes of gold in the color of mountain gold to the Buddha. And he asked the Buddha, may I give you this this special robe, you and Venerable Ananda? And he says, yes, okay. One for me and one for Ananda. Which is unusual because the Buddha, right, didn't wear fancy clothes. That was part of his discipline. That he wore these very simple cotton cloth robes, or at least that's how we understand it. And so there's these beautiful robes, and after Pukasa has gone, then Ananda puts it on the Buddha, and he says, wow, the Buddha is even shinier than these robes. Even shinier. And so as we were approaching the temple, then we had these long robes with us. And I meant to get it off the bookcase there, actually. So we were carrying them in groups of 8. We have these long, beautiful, golden polyester robes. And we're walking in groups of 8 up to the entrance to the temple. And this is a very small room. It's a very small room. It has this statue that is about 18 feet long of the Buddha. It's a depiction of the Buddha lying on his right side with his hand under his head, as he was said to have done when he was dying. And there's just enough room, maybe like 4 feet all the way around, for people to walk around and do circumambulation. And so we walk in, and it's mayhem. There's like at least 100 people, 150 people in this room already. And they're chanting, and they're throwing flowers, and they're throwing money at the Buddha's, literally throwing money at the Buddha's feet, coins and stuff. And, you know, all kinds of stuff is going on. And there are these 2 monks who are standing within the glass. So there's a glass case around the statue so that people cannot actually touch it. And actually that statue is said to have been found by Alexander Cunningham during the Archaeological Survey of India is believed to be from maybe roughly the 6th or 7th century Gupta period India. They found it in many, many pieces and they put it all back together. So it's a very, very precious statue. So they have this glass encasement around it, and then they have these two monks standing inside the case. And what you do is, and this is happening all day long, people come in and we're holding up a robe, and then we kind of walk around to the right. You always circumambulate in clockwise fashion. You walk around to the right and you come to the feet of the Buddha and you hand the monastics the robes that you're carrying, and they pull it up over the Buddha. So as we're walking in, I look over and the monastics are pulling the previous groups, right? The group that was in front of us, pulling the robe up over the Buddha. And I have this flash. Ah, that's what we do when someone dies, right? We pull up the sheet over them. I learned this in the hospital, in hospice, right? We used to probably maybe seen it on TV even. And in that moment, I have this like sudden experience. Oh my goodness, the Buddha's dead. I have this sudden like shock. And I start to cry, the Buddha's dead. And we're walking, and stuff's happening, so we are walking along with our robes. We get to the feet of the Buddha to hand the robes to the two monastics, and the one monastic who's on my side of the case says, "Oh no, you come in here and help. You have to help." So there I am, helping them put our robe that we're offering over the Buddha. And I thought, oh, beautiful. That's a full circle moment right there, right? To acknowledge that I also get to acknowledge that, yes, the Buddha is dead and we're making this offering to him. But then what happens is that we come back around, so then we're at the Buddha's feet, and then we continue to circumambulate all the way back around the room. And I get back to the feet of the Buddha, and then there's this sudden moment of stillness, just a complete release of all tension, all anxiety, all noise, all everything. Like it all stops. And I think, I don't think anything actually for a moment, it just all stops. And I kneel down right there where I'm standing. I kneel down, kind of trying to stay out of the circumambulation route in the corner there. And I'm just quiet and I'm just looking around for a moment. And then I had the thought, oh yes, it's okay that the Buddha is dead, because I've already received everything I need from him. I don't need, it's lovely that we made the offering, it's lovely that people are there and they're chanting and they're circumambulating and they're throwing money and they're doing flowers and it's lovely that we're doing all these things, and I feel absolutely still and certain. And I just kneel there for a very long time. And the reason that I'm telling you this story is because it's not just true for me, it's also true for you. That the Buddha has left you everything you need to wake up. To have the same insights that he tells us about, that he spent 45 years walking around India barefoot, telling everybody about. you too have already received everything you need from the Buddha. But just to hear that, just for me to say it, is not enough. It's not enough. There's something about the place. There's definitely something about that place. But the story that it tells, right? The story that it tells. So the Buddha left the palace. He left his life with his family, his wife, his kid, his parents, his responsibilities to his community. He was one of the ruling clans. He was expected to be, the scion, and so on and so on. And he leaves because he has an experience of his mortality. He has the experience that he too is going to age and get sick and die. And he doesn't want that to happen without having resolved the problem of dukkha, the problem of suffering. And so many things happen, and of course he awakens, and then we have this beautiful scene of him lying down between two trees in what Ananda refers to as this podunk little town of Kushinagar. Lying down and peacefully having those last moments. Right? And he told us all about how that happened for him and how that happened for many, many people. But he gives this last teaching. So the other thing that we see there in the story of his last days is this, there's two parts that I want to share with you. One is, he says, you might think that after I'm gone, you will have no teacher. You might think, oh, the Buddha's dying, and now we will have no teacher. But he says that's not true. He says, after I've gone, this Dhamma and Vinaya, this teaching and this discipline, will be your teacher. Because it never was about him as the only one. It was about him as the example for the rest of us. So it's really important that you find this out for yourself. And so his final words, this is his last words, are very telling. He says, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Appamadina Sampadeta. So that he probably wasn't speaking Pali. That's the words. That's the language that we have that has come down to us. But he would have spoken Magadhan, whatever Magadhan sounded like at that time, because that was the region where he lived. But Vaja Dhamma. So Dhamma here means something like phenomena, just general Dhammas are phenomena, things, stuff that we can experience. And Vaya is always easy for me to remember this because it sounds like it's in Spanish. It means to go, means things that are disappearing or things that are falling apart. And Sankhara is you could say, constructed phenomena, right? Constructed things. So sankharas are, in a limited sense, sort of reactions and responses that we have to what we experience. But in the broader sense, this word sankhara means everything that is based on causes and conditions, which is everything you can experience except nibbana. No? So he's saying all the constructed phenomena, all the conditioned phenomena, everything that we know other than nibbana is falling apart stuff. It is disappearing, going away. And then you have this last line. Apamadena sampadata. So sampadata is the verb there. It means something like to, I like, Sujata says, presses on. This is has a kind of like a British feel to me. Press on, or causes to accomplish, or strives to achieve. Or Bhikkhu Bodhi talks about sampadata as being like a ripening, or like a maturing, or like when the rice is fully cooked, it's sampadata. This sense of like this process that comes to completion. And apamadena means like with care, with a certain degree of diligence. It means not carelessly, apamadena. So the Buddha is saying, conditioned phenomena are falling apart or falling away. So fulfill the way with care. Fulfill the path with diligence. He gave you what you need. But it's only by your own diligence that you can find that out. And you can rely on other folks as a support. You can sort of lean on your fellow Sangha members. That's one of the things we do if we feel doubtful, or if we feel we need some help, or a kind word, or some instruction. All of those things are possible. But don't give yourself that out that says, it's not for me. Times like those, I'm reminded of Blanche Hartman. So Blanche, her Dharma name was Inconceivable Joy. She is like, well, that's aspirational, you know. That's the Dharma name given to her by Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki, who was the founder of San Francisco Zen Center. But anyway, that's not the quote that I want to share with you. Blanche Zenke, abbess, former abbess emeritus of San Francisco Zen Center, she was the first woman to ever be one of the abbots at Zen Center. She would tell the story. She said, you know, when I first came to San Francisco and I heard Suzuki Roshi, and he would say, yes, awakening is possible for all beings, awakening, you know, we all have this nature. And she thought to herself, she said, I thought to myself, he doesn't know me. He doesn't know me. But then years later, decades go by, and she's still at it. And then people would say to her, oh, you know, you don't know me, or, you know, it's not for me, or not this lifetime, or whatever. And she would say, oh, you're not that special, actually. That would make you extremely special. if it weren't for you. You're not that special. We are all endowed with the capacity, and we all can certainly have access to those teachings. Everybody who's here most certainly has been blessed to hear those teachings, have access to those teachings. So we go to a special place, far, far away, and perhaps something happens. For me, there was that very clear moment of returning right here to this knowing, this being, this path. This non-grasping. Nothing else to look for. So, how could I possibly put it any better than the Buddha, right? Vaya Dhamma Sankara Apamadena Sampadata. Constructed things are falling away. So please, please, please fulfill the way with care. All right, friends, let's see. Maybe somebody will take that blue folder off the third shelf of the bookcase, and I will show you a piece of that robe that we offered. Yeah, right there. I'll show you a piece of the robe that we offered, actually. So what happens is that, and this happened at Bodh Gaya too, and at various places, after they put it on the Buddha, then they take it off again and they give it back to us, those of us who offered it. And then our hosts, our guides, take it and cut it all up into pieces so that we each get to have a piece to take home with us, a piece of cloth that touched the Buddha. Oh. It's a lovely memento. I think I'm going to find some way to put it up on the shrine at some point, or make a little, some kind of a. Anyway, I can pass it around. Not that.
You get an end piece.
Yeah.
It's like a cake.
Anyway, so now we have time for comments, questions, reflections. Anything that folks want to say about the talk, about the meditation.
I keep wanting to ask, fulfill the way, what exactly do you mean by that?
So the question, I don't know if you heard of the question, is it Shala?
Haya.
Haya, thank you. It was close. It's not the bread, it's going to get the Y in the middle. Right, okay. Haya was asking about this statement of fulfill the way. Yeah, what does it mean to fulfill the way? And, the Buddha describes this in many different ways, but I would say the fulfillment of the way is that complete end of ignorance, the sense of absolute harmony with reality and a sense of really understanding reality, such that all greed, hatred, and delusion falls off. That's kind of the traditional answer to that. So you could say fulfill the way means absolute insight, an insight that completely, that is so thoroughgoing that there can really be no more resistance at all or confusion at all about the nature of your life.
Wouldn't that be synonymous with enlightenment?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, synonymous with enlightenment. Yes. Exactly.
It's a wonderful word, actually. Because Sambuddhasa, the preface, the prefix to it is the same sam, like completely, fully, and pad is from to walk. So we have completed the journey, we've completed our walk. So it's completely, it is enlightenment. It's the end.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful word.
Yes. Yeah. Could you hear? Yeah, good. He's giving a little bit of the etymology of that word, sampadata. Yes, Kelly, I see you have your hand up.
Hey, yeah, I was wondering if you had any insight as to how technology has changed pilgrimage within Buddhist practice.
Well, one thing is that we have a lot more images now, you know? So one of the things that I found really fascinating was that we would go to these places and the folks who were the guides for our retreat were not only fantastic, wonderful guides with a lot of knowledge about the history and the places and how to take care of us, but also they were great photographers and videographers. So after the event, we would have all of these beautiful photos and videos of each other, of ourselves, of the places, of the people and the animals that were there. We had all kinds of experience of it. So one thing about pilgrimage that's different now because of technology is that we can actually see the places before we get there. And sometimes we think that we know them then, right? But just as I was saying, like the feeling of actually being there, even if you don't, let's say there was some person on the pilgrimage who I was like, did you feel the energy at that place? And he was like, you know, I'm not one of those people who can like feel the energy at a place. But still, to him, it was deeply meaningful. So, you know, being at the place is definitely not the same as seeing the video on Instagram, but but we do get a little bit of a glimpse of what it might be like. And that's quite different, right? Because in the old days, even all kinds of pilgrimage, so you think about, you know, like Christian pilgrims going to Jerusalem or, you know, folks doing the walk through Spain, I forget the name, the Camino, thank you. You know, they didn't know what it looked like where they were going. They had to rely on other people's accounts of what it might be like.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Casey.
I just have a question about the language, and you were talking about how the Buddha wouldn't be speaking in Pali, but would be speaking, or it would be in a different language. So can you help me understand, like, did Ananda, like, what language was he scribing this stuff in, and why is it now in Pali? Like, what?
Yeah. So I'm not an expert about this, but I'll tell you what the bits that I do know. So the Buddha would have spoken Magadhan most likely, but you know, there are a lot of different dialects, and to this day there are many different dialects in India. It's a big, big country, you know. And the Buddha very much encouraged actually the monastics to teach in the dialects of the places where they were going, to like learn the dialects, or if they were from those places, to go back to those places where they knew the dialects and talk to people in the dialects, so that the people had a really good understanding, because he was also taking what was then current language and shaping it in different ways, using it in different ways to try to describe the path. So it's very important that people understood language well in order to speak, you know. That said, as I understand it, and again, I'm not an expert on this, probably Bhikkhu Bodhi knows the most about it of anybody that I know, or maybe Bhante Sujato also would know. But Pali was a language, is a Prakrit, is also a dialect of Sanskrit that was created for the purpose of unifying, making uniformity across the suttas so that people would memorize them all in the same dialect, in the same language.
So did Ananda like scribe this information?
No, Ananda was probably also speaking Magadhan. This would have happened later when close to the time that the suttas were being written down, maybe 300, 400, 500 years after the Buddha. We're not exactly sure.
Okay.
Analia
Yeah.
says a little earlier.
Right,
I
Analia.
mean, it's up in the air.
It could be,
Yeah.
couple
300
hundred
to
years,
Ananda-
500
Ananda
years.
scribed something.
Ananda didn't write anything. He wasn't. There was
So
no
all
written.
of it was passed oral.
Yes, all of it was
Never wrote.
passed verbally for hundreds of
Okay,
years,
and
for
then
the
it was
first
later
couple of
scribed
hundred
in
years,
Pali.
if not
Okay,
more, and
okay.
then it was later written down.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Nino also likes the.
Nino likes the cloth. Yeah, good
He feels the
boy.
energy.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. I didn't know.
You're welcome. And actually, Bhikkhu Bodhi did a very, very good book about learning Pali, if you have any interest in learning Pali, about studying Pali using bits of the suttas. And he wrote this very good book about how to do that, yeah. And there are various, you can take classes and stuff and like that. Okay, folks, well, I think that feels like we're coming to the end of the evening tonight, so I just want to go ahead and give the dedication of merit then. May all the beneficial karmic momentum and the vipaka, the resultants, beneficial karmic resultants of our practice this evening be a cause for our awakening and for the awakening of all beings, that all beings might be free from mental and physical suffering, that all beings might come to know wisdom and compassion and absolute peace. By the power of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be free. Okay, friends. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Meta.
Diga?
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hasta luego.
Hasta
Mucha
luego.
suerte.
Igualmente.